You're listening to the Let's Go Buffalo podcast, your new favorite podcast for everything Bills and Sabres. What's going on, everybody? You're listening to the Let's Go Buffalo podcast, your favorite podcast for all things Bills and Sabres, with the pals, Nigel, Tom, and Jake, and the Sabres just scored. Let's fucking go. Remember to follow us on all the social medias. You can find us with the handle at Let's Go Buff Pod. That's Buff with 2 Fs. We are on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. If you're watching on YouTube, please find us. Please leave a like, drop a comment. It really helps us out with the algorithm. Let's get around here and say hello to the fellas. Tom, how we doing, pal?
What up? You trying to send in a little tape to the effing center for a play-by-play call here?
Dude, I got the game. It's great, dude. I got you guys in front of me, both your handsome faces. I got the Sabres on my right here, which just took the lead against Edmonton. So that's great, dude. I'm feeling good.
We need one of those eye trackers where like just all it's just only looking that way, Jake. That's what we need. He's not even looking at us whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of both. You're doing a lot of this.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what you're gonna say.
Jake, how are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. I'll go out of pocket for your chiropractor bills with that neck snapping.
Yeah, perfect, dude. Thank you. Yeah, very much. Good, dude.
We're just here to support. You know, that's really what's going on here.
Yeah. Folks, so much to get into on both sides of the equation here. But before we do anything, I think the first thing we have to do, like always, snap a beverage here. Boys, you ready to join me?
Please.
Let's do it. I'll count us in. Here we go. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Very nice. Very nice. Jake, you want to go first for us tonight, my guy?
Sure. I have from Lagunitas Brewing Island Beats because it was warm as hell today, and so we're busting down the tropical vibes.
Okay, now let me ask.
Made with beets.
What was warm? What was warm as hell there?
It was like 55.
Huh. Cool. Dude.
That's about as warm as I want it to be in March, to be honest with you.
Well, it wasn't 73 here in Nashville today or anything. So,
see,
blue skies.
That's borderline too hot.
Oh, dude, I'm so excited. I'm telling you, man. The drivers in Tennessee might get me out of the state, but the weather, dude, I don't know if I'll ever leave the South. I can't get enough. I can't get enough. Island Beats, though, Jake. Love it, dude. Schmitty, what are you sucking on?
Pretty sure I'm going to keep Zero Gravity in business by myself. I'm drinking a new session IPA called Tiny Cone.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, I am the proud recipient as this past weekend. I came into possession of 65 beers and 3/4 of a bottle of Woodford Reserve because one of our best pals from college celebrated his bachelor party this past weekend down in Nashville, and they couldn't fly back with all the alcohol. So guess who got to keep it all?
Wow.
This guy.
Well, so now for 65 episodes, you better not tell us you don't have a beer.
Yeah, no, 100%. They won't. Dude, I got Bud Lights. I got the little the Modelos, the Modelitos that are like 7 ounces.
That's my name for you.
Thank you. Bud Light, Coors Light. I got the IPA pack here and the bottle of Woodford, dude. So I'm sitting pretty for a while.
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
But yeah, this is the Southern Tier IPA. So,
hey, cheers, boys.
Cheers, fellas. Good to see you. Well, folks, we like I said at the beginning here, there is so much to talk about, and I think what we're gonna do. This is our plan to start, and it could change towards the end if we find that we've got enough time. But we kind of decided here that we're gonna focus on the Sabres today, Monday. While acknowledging that we know that there were some really big things that happened with the Bills, such as Josh Allen setting the guaranteed money market for the NFL. We acknowledge that there are some really significant things happen, but we don't want to sacrifice any quality of conversation. So we're going to do mostly Sabres tonight, and then we're thinking right around Wednesday evening, Tom and I and maybe a special guest will cover some Bill stuff. So we're going to get going with the Sabres here a little bit. The NHL trade deadline passed last week, and the Sabres did make a move, made a couple moves actually, but the most significant took place between the Sabres and the Senators. So to Buffalo, the Sabres received Josh Norris and Jacob Bernard Docker from the Senators for Dylan Cousins, Dennis Gilbert, and a 2026 second round pick. Just a couple stats on the guys that we got here. Josh Norris, former first round pick number 19, I believe, in the 17 or 18 draft. I don't know if you know that, Jake, but right around there. This season so far, he's got 53 games played, 33 points on the seasons, 20 goals, 13 assists. His best season came in 21-22, where he had 55 points, 35 goals, 20 assists. I do remember hearing his name nonstop that season and being like, fuck, Ottawa's got a gem here in this Josh Norris guy. And then since then, he's kind of trailed off. I think the consensus remains that the ceiling is still high. He's still young, but he's been injury plagued in his career so far. He has yet to surpass 66 games in a season. That was the season where he had 55 points. So, the ceiling is there. The point producing ability is there. But it's been a significant downgrade since that 21-22 season. Jake, there's been a couple of stats here that you found. Maybe we can drop some of those numbers and then share our opinions on the trade a little bit. What do you think, Guy?
Yeah, sure, for sure. Before we get into opinions too much, so I think this is not really an opinion, but he is not as good of a 5-on-5 player as Dylan Cousins. So I think you take a little bit of a hit there. This year, for example, he does have 20 goals and 13 assists. However, 10 each of those 10 goals, 10 assists have been on the power play. 20 of his 33 points have been power play. So, he is a bit of a power play merchant. It's not a terrible thing. Points are points are points, but it does still give me some pause. Getting into that further, I think he is an upgrade from Dylan Cousins in a few areas beyond the power play. He is an excellent faceoff guy. He's, I believe he was up there as far as leading the Senators, and he is far and away coming in the best faceoff guy on the Sabres, other than Beck Malenstein, who has a shockingly high faceoff percentage win rate, but I think that's because he doesn't take a lot of them. Anyways, yeah, I think faceoffs is an area that we've talked about for years of the Sabres being very poor at, pretty much since they got rid of Ryan O'Reilly. And even when he was on the team, he was the only one that was winning faceoffs. So, I think that's good. But again, you're not trading for a player because he's good in the dot. I think we get into some overarching thoughts on the trade here.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, Jake, I am super, because you expressed earlier to me that you are not a fan of the trade. And I think I maybe lean a little bit more in the opposite direction from you. But I'm really curious to hear what it is. I want to know what you think.
Oh, this will be some good debate then, I hope. I think the words I put into our group chat when I saw the full trade was, I can't tell if I hate it or if I absolutely fucking despise it.
Yeah, something like that. That's about right.
And I do think that's still true. I don't like it. I don't think it moves the needle in any meaningful way this year or future years. I think to me, when I see the trade package, Buffalo was sending the second round pick. So that's telling me that between the two GMs, both GMs thought that Buffalo was presenting the weaker side of the trade. And, an asset is worth what somebody's going to pay for it, right? So I know Dylan Cousins' stock is down. I know that he has struggled tremendously since that season 2 years ago when he put up 31 goals.
Oh, was it 31?
70 points, something like that. Had a great year and has faltered stupendously since then. I know that. But if you pull the microscope back, he is a 23-year-old big-bodied right shot center that has displayed a full season of proof that he can play NHL hockey and two-way 5-on-5 hockey. That's not an asset that I'm particularly fond of trading away, especially when he really, I think, needed a change of scenery. I think he will do stupendously well in Ottawa. Pretty much anywhere he goes, he needed a refresh, a fresh look at the NHL, and he's going to get it. I'm okay with trading him. What I'm not okay with is what you got back for him. And I know that everybody's biased. Everybody wants to get, you trade a 3rd round pick and you get McDavid back. But I really feel like there was more to be had with trading him away, packaging him up with, make that draft pick a 1st round pick, make Dennis Gilbert a better defensive prospect, and get a player that is not as risky as Josh Norris. Josh Norris has been plagued by injury so far, and that can evaporate, and you look back and, oh wow, remember when he was hurt all the time? And that isn't a factor, but it's still a risk. He hasn't proved it yet. And not to mention, he is 2 years older than Dylan Cousins. He is a touch more expensive, but they're signed to similar contracts. It feels like a hockey trade. You're essentially trading Cousins for Norris, but one that just makes me scratch my head. And I feel like the ceiling, the heights that can be reached are much, much more juicy for Ottawa than they are for Buffalo. And for me, yeah, that's just baseline why I am not a fan. I want to turn it over to you and cheer me up. Talk me out of the hole.
I can't do that. But I can't do that. There's a couple things that I echo, and here's the most disappointing thing that I echo is that I think Dylan Cousins is going to go to Ottawa and be fucking sensational. I think he's going to crush there. He already had 1 game, 1 point. Here was the stat that I was legitimately pissed off when I saw, though. 1 game in Ottawa, 9 fucking hits for Dylan Cousins. And that dude, honestly, made me want to punch the guy in the fucking head, because he's been nothing but soft as puppy shit for the Sabres since that season where he played well. I was severely irritated to see that stat, dude, because I haven't seen that Dylan Cousins even a little tiny bit. You remember when he came into the season, rookie year, he's fighting every 10 games or so. He's throwing the body around, playing the game that you saw him play in juniors. And then these last couple of years, I don't know what we've seen, but then you go to 1 game for another team and you're putting up almost double-digit hits. Fucking lick my ass, Dylan.
He's fired up. I don't know. I can't get myself to blame this early 20s kid for not being able to get fired up for a Buffalo Sabres game this far in his career. I don't know. I can't do it.
I certainly can. I absolutely can. And maybe I'm more petty than you, Jake. But the other side of it, at the end of the day, I think what this comes down to is 2 high ceiling players that both needed a change of scenery, right? Because you can be pissed all you want about Dylan Cousins going there, but here's the other thing. I don't think he was. I didn't see it getting better in Buffalo.
No,
right? Like it almost felt like it was too far gone. So both guys I felt like needed a change of scenery. When I zoom out, truthfully, I think the ceiling for both teams ultimately can be very similar. I do think Josh Norris is an insanely good hockey player. And he's also had a season where he's had good numbers, right? The concern is the injuries, right? I think you need to see him be healthy. And if he can't stay healthy, then right then and there, Ottawa wins this trade because their guy's playing and ours isn't.
Oh, easily, yeah.
Right.
I think there's a very realistic path to Buffalo still losing the trade if Josh Norris is healthy and Dylan Cousins gets back to any kind of form.
There totally is. But I do also think that a healthy Josh Norris can be the same as a Dylan Cousins.
Do you think a healthy Josh Norris is, where do you see him slotting in on a let's walk through wildest fantasy land on a Sabres team that is contending? Where do you see him slotting in? Is he your first line center, second line center? I think
you swap him right for what you ideally hoped Dylan Cousins was. I think Josh Norris can be a second line center in this league for sure. He's a big guy. He's not quite Dylan Cousins size, but he's also not small. You mentioned the size with DC. I don't remember the exact numbers, but he's over 6. I'm pretty sure
6'2", 196.
There you go. So I mean, size wise, they're almost the same. You get a better face-off guy, like you mentioned, and I totally agree. You don't trade a guy just because of his face-off, but that is something we've talked about the last 4 or 5 years with the Sabres team. Is nobody can win a fucking face-off. So you do like that. I'd rather see like a guy like Like now you have a guy like Josh Norris you can put on the ice in those late game situations as opposed to a Beck Malenstein just because you need the possession and the face off. Like that's a significant thing. So I think ultimately you had two guys that needed to move. And I think ultimately you can be in a situation where it works out for both teams. I think right now it's more likely that Ottawa has more success. For Buffalo to have success in this trade, you're looking for Josh Norris to suddenly become healthy. And you said it, like you said it, Jake, it can happen. It's not out of the question, right? But do you bank on that? That's a risk.
What's his contract situation? Is this a rental or is he signed with Buffalo for a bit?
No, so they had very similar contracts. So he signed. Dylan Cousins was something like 7.1 million. Josh Norris is at 7.9. For he signed an 8-year contract a few years ago, so he's in year 3 of that deal. So he'll be a free agent after the 29-30 season, which feels outrageous to say those year numbers, but
yeah, no, that's forever from now. Yeah, okay,
yeah. So he's locked up for the next 5 years, with much to his disappointment at the current moment, I'm sure. So yeah, I mean he's a long-term Sabre, and whether he likes it or not.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
God, it's really tough. And I guess I'll mention this real quick. Usually when and he said all of this, he did say this in his introductory press conference. He said all the cliche hockey things, excited for a fresh start, yada, 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 yada. If you're a hockey fan and you don't listen to the Elliot Friedman and Kyle Bukowski's 32 Thoughts podcast, I would highly recommend. I think it's great. I like those two guys a lot. And they both saw enough on Josh Norris's face that they felt the need to bring it up on their national hockey podcast, that walking into that Panthers game, Josh Norris just looked absolutely fucking crushed. He left one of his best friends on the planet in Brady Tkachuk in Ottawa. That was a team that was actively contending. Right now, I believe as it stands, they're in a playoff spot. They have a huge game coming up against Detroit, I think either tonight or tomorrow.
Tonight, they're playing right now.
Yeah, playing right now. So, like, but that's always tough, right? Like when you get a guy that's supposed to be the replacement for what you just gave up, and he's fucking bummed. Like that sucks, dude.
Yeah.
Like that hurts. That hurts. Like you can't, as a fan, like you can't get excited. So yeah, but like I think ultimately it can work out for both sides. I think right now it's more likely it looks like it works out for Ottawa because they have the guy that isn't hurt all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's dial back a bit. Who do you still view Tage Thompson as the Sabres' number 1 center, not only currently, but for in the next 1 to 4 years?
Well, Lindy Ruff sure doesn't, and Lindy Ruff knows a lot more about hockey than I do. So there and okay, so Jake, you actually funneled into a question that I wanted to ask you. Can I answer your question with another question?
Please.
So give me just 1 second here. I got to get back to the Sabres Twitter account because I want to look at the opening night roster again and compare them to the opening night roster from last night. Oops, this is the wrong thing here. Because I'm wondering now, the question that I'm going to ask you, Jake, ultimately is, do the Sabres now have a center depth issue?
Yes.
Here are the centers going into tonight's game. Your first line center is Josh Norris. Second line center was Ryan McLeod. Third line center was Peyton Krebs. And your fourth line center was Jordan Greenway. Scratched was Yuri Kulik, Bernard Docker, Josh Dunn, and Itzhak Rozan.
Yeah, I think Kulik's hurt right now, right?
Is he? I believe you're right. Yeah.
I think so. And he's slotted into that first line center position.
Where he should also not be.
Probably at this point. No, I don't think so.
So
yeah, I think there is a center depth issue. I think it's such a important role for your team. I don't think Ryan McLeod. I think Ryan McLeod's been great, but I don't think he's a second line center on a contending team. I think Peyton Krebs is great. I don't think he's a third line center on a contending team at the moment either. So yeah, I think there is a lack of center depth. If Tage were performing well and in the number 1 spot, different answer. But yeah, we talked many times about, wow, the center depth on this team is great. Like, we got Thompson and Cousins locked up for the next 7 years or 8 years or whatever. And boy, how lucky are we? Thompson and Cousins locked up for less than one Austin Matthews. That statement feels a little silly right now when one of them is gone and one of them is playing on the wing.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So I think now the question, or not the question, but I think the statement is the Buffalo Sabres lack a number one center.
boy, wouldn't Jack Eichel look really good on this team?
Oh, I knew it. I knew it was going to come up.
Tell me I'm wrong. You subtract Tuck and Krebs and you throw in Jack Eichel. It's a different roster, yes, but there's
Yuri Kulik slides right where Alex Tuck is. No problem.
Let me just torture ourselves a little bit more.
Do you wait a minute?
Oh yeah.
Is this something you have to do?
Yeah. I do. What if Sam Reinhart stayed?
That was the next one that was coming.
What if we subtract Tuck and Krebs and we add back in Eichel and Reinhart? 2 Stanley Cup winners. 50 goal scorer Sam Reinhart, who was bad at back checking according to Paul Hamilton, so he got run out of town.
You guys are both gonna have an early grave tonight.
I'm gonna clip this and tag Paul Hamilton. Paul Hamilton, fuck you, dude. You're an absolute buffoon. Dude, it's horrible, but like, I know you and I are aligned on the Eichel situation, and that we both believe that Buffalo fucked it up.
Royally.
It was not Jack Eichel. But I mean, it's just like the Dylan Cousins situation. Like, things just get too far gone to the point where they are irreparable.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just, this is the result.
Yeah. Who's next is what I'm wondering. How long does Dahlin have?
He's who's next.
Probably him or Thompson. Yeah, one of them. Teams would bend over backwards to add either of those guys.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. So it's the center depth is an issue now. 100%. No two ways about it. I don't know, like, and I have been so unconcerned about him because I was so positive he was going to end up being a trade piece. But like, what are Noah Oslin's numbers like right now? What are Anton Wahlberg's numbers like in the A right now? Like, those are guys that are centers that we have in the pipeline, but they've been so far off my radar because I went into this season thinking that the center depth, we went into this season thinking, sorry, my phone fell, thinking Thompson, Cousins, McLeod, Krebs, and felt pretty good.
Yeah.
And now we're like, okay, and I'm basing my decision that Tage Thompson maybe isn't a number one center solely off the fact that Lindy Ruff does not see him as one.
Right.
Clearly.
No, yeah, definitely not. And who knows? A different coach could feel differently about it, but I don't know. We'll see. But to get back to your comment, I almost don't care what the numbers are in the AHL for Hellenius Ostland, because I'll quote you 2 different numbers. The former is 18 and the latter is 20. Yeah. And you can't bring them up and expect success for them. Any of them. Wahlberg's 19. The issue with this roster for the past many years is that they are the youngest in the NHL and they lack the veteran presence and mental fortitude to succeed in the league. And over so many years, it's so damaging to have no meaningful games after New Year's or even before in some cases. I don't care what level of hockey you've played. I don't care what kind of person you are. Bad habits creep into your game, and that is so evident when you watch the Sabres just struggle mightily early in the year and not be able to battle back until it's too late, and then the pressure's off. It's not a lack of skill. It is organizational filth that just runs down the walls in that building. Yeah. Until that changes, I frankly I don't care what players are in the room.
I'm thinking about a number one center, right? Like, okay, you're not trading for a number one center because any legitimate number one center in the NHL has a no trade clause, and Buffalo is whether it's a 10 team, 12 team, 15 team, or a full no trade clause, Buffalo's on it, right? I don't care if it's a 2 team no trade list, Buffalo's on it, right? And you're not luring any number one center free agent here because Buffalo's dog shit and New York's taxes suck and it's cold and it's shitty for 6 months out of the year. So how do you get out of this vicious cycle?
I don't know. Yeah, name me the last cup winner that won without a number one center.
If you can answer the question, Jake, you get the job of being the Sabres GM.
Fuck, I don't want the job, but
The job is being the Sabres number one center.
Well, okay. What's a worse job in the world right now? President of the United States or Buffalo Sabres GM? Just like what job would be harder to do? What job
Sabres GM?
What job is more? What job leads you towards more failure? Probably Sabres GM, dude. You probably get more people that agree with you and support you as the president than you do as the Sabres GM. Fucking God, dude. It's an organizational disaster. And again, it feels like the only plausible explanation only plausible solution is for Terry to sell a team.
But sorry, my brain went down the political track for a minute there. fuck the current president of the United States, and if you like him and you're listening, then fuck you too. Moving on.
The Bernard. We should talk about Bernard Docker real quick for a second, right? Or is there anything else you want to touch on with the Josh Norris?
No, we've been talking about Josh Norris for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Where do you see? Yeah. So the other piece, the younger defenseman, where do you see him fitting in?
Hopefully not in Buffalo. But I mean, we have yet to talk about this trade, but Yoki Haryu's a Bruin now. So you do have technically a hole, and Dennis Gilbert gone now too. So like Jacob Bryson's playing right now, and I'll tell you what, he doesn't look good.
He hasn't for some time.
Right. And Bernard Docker, so the last couple of years, he's split time between the Bellevue Senators, and the Ottawa Senators. 2 years ago was about 50-50 between the two. Last year played 72 games in the show, and then 2 games in for Bellevue. So like his numbers in the NHL keep going up every year. This year they've taken a drop. I thought it was because of performance. Jake actually did the correct work and figured out it was because of injury. So you might have a depth third pairing guy in Bernard Docker. He's played 25 games this season, 4 points. Whatever.
Yeah, so he was injured a bit. I saw he had a high ankle sprain, went into the boards funny. So I think that's part of it. However, I don't think that makes up for the rest of the games that he's missed. I think he has been healthy scratched on and off. I'd have to look more into how he's fared, but I don't think I'm incredibly high on him. I think I look at him and I ask myself, is he better than what Ryan Johnson could be? Is he better than what Nikita Novikov could be? Maybe, but I think that's largely unproven. And I don't think it's a guarantee that he is a consistent player in the NHL. So at that point, what is he like? Why was he targeted and included? That's a rhetorical question. I don't have the answer to it. I don't know if you do either, but nope. I'm curious. Like to me, the Josh Norris and Dylan Cousins swap feels 1-for-1. So is this younger defenseman really worth Dennis Gilbert and a second round pick? Time will tell. I feel like a second round pick is pretty significant to give up.
That was steep for Bernard Docker. That was where I was not aligned with the trade very, very, very intensely.
Yeah, and not just because I don't think that Bernard Docker is not worth it, but I think there's an opportunity cost there too. Of that's a second round pick that you have now handcuffed that you are not able to use as an asset to get a different player to improve your roster.
Right.
So it's not to say in a bubble I dislike it too, but it's just overall I think it's shelling out an asset that I don't know if you needed to for a player that I don't know makes that big of a difference to your roster.
Yeah, I mean he's never been a two-way guy in the slightest. His best point numbers were actually last year. He had 14 points in 72 games in the show, and only 6 points in 41 games in the AHL last year.
Which I'm fine with. We don't need a rover. I mean, if we have Dahlin, Byram, and Power on the back end, I don't need somebody that's gonna rip up the ice like a fucking racehorse and put the puck in the net themselves. Like I need somebody that can play with those guys and move the puck effectively, but still be responsible for their own game.
And then here, right. So in those 72 games with the Senators last year, on not a great Senators team, -7, right? Not terrible, but certainly not good. And 25 PIMs. This is so like if you were to make a blanket statement about the player just based on those numbers, strikes me as a third pairing guy that likes to play a physical game, that will be a stay-at-home guy and not get you any points. If I was going to draw a conclusion from those stat lines, I haven't done enough research on the player because I don't think it moves the needle even a little bit. So who fucking cares? But maybe it does next year. We lost Yoki Haru. We can get to that now, I guess. We traded Yoki to the Bees for a 4th-round pick. He's gone. I couldn't be more fine with it.
Yeah, it is what it is.
He's been mediocre at best with us at any point.
I saw a comment that he asked for a trade out, which again can't blame him.
Can't blame him.
But
I was baffled that he made the Finnish Four Nations team.
I think the Finnish leadership was too.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know.
There's not many Finnish defensemen in the NHL, to be honest. So
yeah, so
he
I mean, I'm fine with him being gone. 4th-round pick probably feels overall pretty fair to me.
So UFA after this year.
Boston's in shambles now that they traded Marchand, so I don't know that he's going to be any happier there. Maybe he gets to reunite with Casey Middlestat and they can be sad together.
Yeah.
But who cares about that one? That's kind of a whatever.
And the only other minor trade that happened, kind of snuck in at the end there, was Nicholas Aube-Kubel got traded to the New York Rangers for Eric Brandstrom, a defenseman. So 2 names that you would recognize from the NHL not too long ago, but at this point, AHL swaps. So
you got it.
Not much to say there. A little bit of D depth.
I did. Yeah. Real quick, I just want to ask how much of the I know I said both guys needed a change of pace, or a change of scenery. Excuse me. How much of that trade with the Senators do you think was Kevin Adams just being like, "Fuck, I have to do something"?
Oh man,
you had to put a percentage on it.
36%.
I say 45.
Okay. We're
not too far off.
Spitting distance.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. I mean, at this point, his job's on the hot seat more than anyone. I think.
Here's where I disagree. I don't think this is where we disagree, because I don't think Kevin Adams is going anywhere.
I would love to be wrong. I would love for you to be wrong.
Me too.
Him actually be judged on performance, but
I do not think he will be. I think he will be the
dude.
GM next year at least.
I guess if the ownership stays the same, I guess I'm okay with that. I can't think about that. Can I bring up a different topic?
Yeah. Well, Go right ahead.
I want to talk about a trade that was not made, but there was some rumors, vicious rumors flying around, and there was a lot of talk about JJ Peterka and teams being. I saw it went so far as to say that there was like a deal in place between the Rangers and Buffalo for JJ Peterka.
I saw, yes.
And insiders are full of shit through and through. Until something is confirmed, I don't really believe anything they say. So I didn't really believe that at the time. I'm really glad that did not come into fruition, though. Yes. 31 out of 31 other teams should be licking their chops to try to pry that guy out of Buffalo. And unless he straight up demands a trade and holds Jack Quinn hostage or something like that, I do not think trade that player. Has he looked disinterested at times this year? Yes. What Saber has not. But you do not trade him. He is a bull. He is a complete 5-on-5 player. He's young. He's cost controlled. Don't pick up the phone. Hang up the phone if people call.
Yeah,
blue chip player you can build around.
You totally. He's a major piece for sure, and a guy that you drafted. Right, he's an in-house guy. Like, I would like to see Kevin Adams prioritize maybe a little bit of the draft, develop, resign, which I think he ultimately, like, his track record proves that. But I think almost to a fault, this is a guy that, you absolutely get him on a nice deal ASAP. I would have much rather Peterka get on a nice deal than Matthias Samuelsson. Right?
Yes.
So like,
100%.
Yeah, you needed to keep JJ Peterka. My only thought there was, like, if he's going to New York, they've got some insane guys that I would like to have, but it better be one of those insane guys and like a high-end prospect at the very, very least. But ultimately, yeah, it's a guy that you drafted. He's in-house. You don't trade that guy yet. He's young. He's good for 30 goals a year minimum, it seems like right now. I'm also very relieved we did not trade. I got very nervous.
Yeah, same. All right, we got 2 re-signings to talk about too. We'll hit those real quick, and then I think we talk about. I want to ask you a question about bigger picture roster building for the offseason.
Awesome.
So 2 re-signings, veteran players. One, Jason Zucker came over last offseason. He re-signed for 2 years, $4.75 million a year. A little bit of a dip in AAV, I think. Isn't he making $5 million right now?
Making a touch over 5.
So a little bit more term, a little bit less money for him. He's 33 years old. He's performed great in Buffalo this year. This is probably his best season of his career. If I had to put
it is statistically.
He's got 44 points in 54 games. He's been dominant on the power play, fit right in with that squad. So we'll touch on him more in a second. And then the other player they re-signed was Jordan Greenway, also a 2-year deal, $4 million AAV. Nice little extension for him. He's 27 years old. He's got 8 points this year in 26 games. You want to pick apart either of those?
I'll say this. I want to encompass them both and say that this, I think, is good work by Kevin Adams. I am happy that both of these guys are coming back. Jason Zucker is veteran presence that you desperately need. He seems to fit in the locker room. Guys seem to like him, and he's performing well. And Jordan Greenway gives you a skill set that I don't think you have anywhere else. And I really do think when he's not hurt, Jordan Greenway is a good player. I'm watching him in this game tonight. He is a massive body fucking flying around, dude. He's not, massively offensively creative, but I'm watching him actively be a prick and a very fast, large body to contend with. It's not a huge dollar number. I think both of those guys probably took the highest contract that they could possibly get. They're not getting more than that on the free agent market. I'm very positive. So for both of them, it's a smart move financially. And I think it's also a good move for Buffalo. It's 2 players that if they go, you need to replace the skill set entirely or the leadership entirely, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. I feel like it is a good thing to keep them. I alluded to this earlier, how Buffalo is the youngest team in the league, not only this year, the year before, the year before that, the year before that. Like it's been a
probably will be
thing.
Next year.
Probably, but it needs to change. Like I think it was fine. It was cute for a time where it's like, oh, these young run and gun Sabres, but it's not cute anymore. You can't win in the NHL that way. You need veteran leadership to show these 20-year-old kids how to fucking compete and earn a playoff spot. Skill doesn't get you there. So I think it's good that these guys are re-signed. I don't think it's enough. I'm wondering.
It's not enough.
I mentioned opportunity cost. Does re-signing these guys lock up a roster spot for someone else unnamed out there? That's my concern. I don't know how real that is. I think if these re-signings are the only kind of overhaul, I'll call it, as far as veteran depth in the offseason, I would be vastly disappointed. I don't think they will be, but you need to get guys here that want to play in Buffalo and can compete here, not just play. And I don't think these guys move the needle for me. Like I'm glad they re-signed them, but I'm still skeptical just because of where the team is.
Maybe I overexpressed where I think these guys are, because I think they are pieces exclusively. I don't think either of these guys come close to an answer, but I think they are necessary pieces for the reasons we just talked about. You with Jason Zucker, you get a veteran that seems to, at the very least, is okay with being in Buffalo. And that is vastly superior to, I would guess, 95% of the veteran free agent market in the NHL. Right? So because you have a single veteran that is putting up halfway decent numbers, you almost have no choice, in my opinion.
If he wants to stay, you re-sign him. Yeah.
Exactly. If he's like, yo, I'll stay, you fucking ink him.
Yeah.
And you don't even think twice about it, because the alternative is what? Who? Somebody probably worse. Are you getting anybody better? Not without significantly overpaying by several million, which you did with Zucker, but still only $5 million.
Yeah, I think one of my concerns is if they're going to have a hell of a time bringing anybody in free agency unless they vastly overpay, which we have seen. It's not confirmed, but it seems like there's some kind of internal cap, so that's not an option. They're not going to overpay vastly for a free agent. Drafting somebody is not really an option anymore. You can't wait 3, 4, 5, 6 years for somebody. So the way to get somebody in that can really help shift the culture and shift the trajectory of the team is through trades. We've seen Kevin Adams pull off somewhat or successful trades when dumping a player. Thinking back to that Jack Eichel trade, it wasn't terrible. He got some good pieces back.
Absolutely.
I can't think of a trade where he's gone out and gotten the best player in a trade, like brought in the big fish. Can you? Is there anything that I'm missing?
The only thing I can think of is maybe, well, this wasn't even a trade, but the Taylor Hall signing, his first year as a GM.
Yeah,
like that was that he was the biggest name on the market at the time, but obviously it was a complete disaster.
yeah, I know. Oh God, complete disaster.
But I mean, at the time, that was
at the time it was absolutely it was big. I'm missing him displaying a prowess to go out and trade for a legitimate piece. Like, no disrespect to Josh Norris, I view him as a good or very good complementary piece, but I don't know if he's a piece. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think he has the chops for it. I haven't seen him make many good trades in that regard where he's the one buying, quote unquote.
Yeah. So this is a spot where we disagree, Jake, because like I said earlier, I just feel so certain that anybody that is of value has Buffalo on their no trade list right now. That's where we never get the insight to that, right? We never know. We don't know who he's calling after. Like, maybe, I mean, dude, for all we know, Kevin Adams has risked his life to bring in Mikko Rantanen, Mitch Marner. He could be doing everything he possibly can, and these players could be going, fuck no, and there's nothing he can do.
But to play devil's advocate a bit, think back to the offseason. There were all those Marty Necas rumors. And I think from what we learned from the outside is that they didn't pull the trigger because they didn't think he would resign here. What if we took a gamble and said, you know what? Fuck it. Let's trade for him anyways. Let's see how he does. Maybe we can convince him over the next year to resign. And he pops off playing on Tage Thompson's wing. He puts up 70 points. Sabres are in a playoff spot and they make the playoffs. I think that guy's a lot more willing to resign if he had a good year here. Like, there's so much emotional and points loss driven baggage with the team. I think you have to. I think you have to make a gamble that somebody's going to work here and is willing to resign here when maybe they aren't initially. And it is a gamble, but I think if you trust your pro scouting staff enough to bring in guys that can work with the style that you're trying to play and work with the players that you have, then maybe it's not that much of a gamble. Like, look at what Washington did this year. They brought in so much outside talent from rosters around the NHL. And I know that they want to be on the team with Ovi. They want to play in Washington. They have success. I get all that. But still, there's that those factors are not what made them a good team this year. They diligently scouted and brought in the right mix of players to work with the style that they were playing and with the players that they currently had. So, no trade clauses suck. You're not going to get the big fish that way, but there are plenty of other players that don't have those restrictions that I don't think we've taken a fair shot at, honestly. Sam Lafferty, I don't know if he's the needle mover that we needed to get over the hump,
No, he's definitely not. But one of my big talking points this offseason was that the whole bottom six need to be retooled. And I think for the role you put a Sam Lafferty in, I think he's been good for the Sabres this year. He's fast, he's physical, and what are you expecting from him? You're not bringing him on the team to be your point needle mover. You're bringing him on the team to be a prick to play against and get you a handful of points this season. So I agree with you, but I agree with you in the sense that he's not a needle mover, but you didn't bring him in to be a needle mover. Like, I don't think Kevin Adams is so far out of touch that he's like, you know what? You bring Sam Lafferty in, I think he could pop off for 25, 30 goals here. Like, I don't think that's what's happening. I liked the Sam Lafferty signing. You know, you see Sam Lafferty with other teams in the past. He's never been a guy that sticks around for a long time on a team. He's always been a 1-2 year guy, and then he's on to the next to be a fourth line guy. You know, he was never in to be that. But so to kind of backtrack a little bit, I think where you and I have a disconnect here, Jake, is I'm putting more emphasis on. And maybe I'm wrong here objectively. I don't know. But I feel like when it comes to the trades, Kevin Adams doesn't have enough within his control to get what we need. What I think is Terry needs to pull his head out of his ass, pull out that fucking checkbook, and go overpay $6 million for a top line center. I mean, okay, $6 million is a stretch, but if a guy was going to make 8 on an open market average, go pay him 10.5, 11.
Yeah. Then I think yes, yeah, okay. We're back on track there. I agree. Pull out the pocketbook. The cap is going up like crazy.
And that's how you get that player. I think that's the only way you can get that player. We see it in the NFL nonstop right now. Guys don't give a shit about winning. Guys want money.
Yeah.
And we're talking about two different sports cultures, right? Hockey, football, different sports cultures. You're talking about nothing but yuppie white dudes versus a lot of, minority men, some of which had really shitty, horrible upbringings with no money, right? And hockey is a privileged sport. So maybe it's a different culture, and some of these guys maybe are like, you know what? I will go take my shot at winning because I've never had to worry about money in my life, and I don't even have to think about what that feels like for a second. And we're talking about philosophical things that you and I can't even begin to empathize or touch on accurately. But I'm just saying maybe it's a change. My honest guess, though, is if you pay a guy $3 million more than he's going to make on a team that's going to win, he's probably going to go and do it. I just don't think we've overpaid that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to get done through a trade. I really don't. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't think we're going to see that kind of free agency bonanza either.
But not because we can't, because Terry's an idiot. And that's where it gets really difficult for me.
Because we won't. Yeah. And I mean,
he does it for the Bills. I don't understand the disconnect there. That's the other thing I don't understand. Like the bill, these are all bonuses for the bill. Fucking all of Von Miller's incentives and bonuses last year. Are you fucking kidding me? And then we can't do that in free agency to get somebody that this team genuinely needs. Like I don't know what that disconnect is. Maybe there's an ignorance issue in my brain that I don't understand between the two leagues. But
or it could be as simple as that. There are players out there that just say, you know what, I don't care what you offer me. I'm not even listening to your offer.
It could be
that
we'll never know. We'll never know.
No,
that's the difficult thing about us doing this podcast versus Elliot Friedman doing his podcast.
Yeah, exactly. You hit on something, and I was too strong on it. Maybe Sam Lafferty not being a needle mover, and I agree with you. I think maybe I'm misplacing my anger at Sam Lafferty when really the failings of the team this year has been the Jack Quinns, the JJ Peterkas, the Tucks and Thompsons and Dahlins for not taking even a marginal step forward. None of them. Cousins, throw him in there too. Everybody really has stagnated or taken a small to medium large size step back. And so I think that goes to coaching. What is Lindy Ruff and his staff doing? Why did Lindy Ruff not have the agency to make any more outside hires? Why was he stuck with the assistants that were here? Was that his decision? Was that Kevin Adams' decision? Was that Terry Pegula's decision? But something stinks around coaching and development this year under Lindy Ruff and Kevin Adams, and that is a huge mark of what's the opposite of a badge of honor? A medal of shit? I don't know. I don't know.
Dishonorable discharge.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, point being that is where I take the most issue with.
Let me ask you
this
this
season.
real quick, Jake. This is a rumor that I was seeing way back when the coaching staff was put together. True or false? Seth Appert is the head coach of the Buffalo Sabres next year.
Oh man, well Lindy Ruff signed for 2 years. This is the first of a 2-year deal that he signed.
Mm-hmm.
So he would have to mutually agree to terminate or be fired this offseason. I could see that happening, and yeah, I could see that. I could see Seth Appert being the head coach of the Buffalo Sabres in fall.
Let me ask you this then. Let's say Lindy plays out his contract. Do you think it's a slam dunk then that Seth Appert just moves into that position?
Yeah, I do. I think he's been groomed for it.
I agree. I think this has been the plan the whole time.
Yeah.
The more I watch this season and watch Lindy in press conferences and him being like, don't have a fucking clue what to do. Never experienced this. In my 10,000-year career coaching hockey, never experienced this. Right? This screams to me Pagula and Adams sitting in some stupid fucking office with some dumbass Starbucks dipshit latte frou-frou McTwist with a caramel fucking dollop.
That's an expensive order. Are you sure?
Saying, might be out of it. Yeah, they might be willing to do that.
They got the black coffee from Tim Hortons. Budget cuts. That right. You're thinking of what Terry drinks when he's at the Bills facility. I'm sorry to interrupt your train of thought. Keep going.
No. But screams to me those two sitting here saying the fan base will dig Lindy being back, and Seth Appert will be cheap. We have to make a coaching change. Let's get this 2-year Band-Aid, and then we'll bring Seth up, especially because he's had so much success with the Amerks.
I hate it, but I see it. Yeah,
this was brought up in the offseason, and I talked myself out of it. I was like, I talked myself out of it by saying, you know what? Lindy Ruff is an aged veteran who is not at this point in his career going to be someone's fucking Band-Aid. And I think I might be wrong. I think he might, I don't know if he just doesn't care and was like, all right, I could use a couple more million before I retire.
I wonder if there was, he enjoyed his time in Buffalo before. I wonder if there was a nostalgia element to him too.
Saying, he was winning his ass off when he was here.
Yeah.
All he did was win when he was here.
Who knows? But I remember we both talked ourselves out of that situation. Did. It was that we were talking about how that would be just a short-sighted. You said it, a Band-Aid decision, and that's just not how you win.
No.
As the season's gone along, it seems more and more likely that was what's happening. Yeah, I agree with you. It's whether or not it's this fall or next fall that we see Seth Appert behind the bench.
That's what it feels like.
Who maybe it'll fucking work. Who knows at this point? I'll try anything.
Right? Maybe. I don't know. He at least did have success in the A. Right? I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
I know it doesn't. But if you're going to hang your hat on anything with Seth Appert being the head coach of the Sabres, that's probably the only thing you can hang it on, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Truthfully,
they're just such different leagues.
It sure as fuck isn't his power play this year.
Nope. That's what he was brought in to fix.
That's what I'm saying. So is this Band-Aid already a disaster? I don't know.
God, the Band-Aid has sepsis.
It's really tough. Jake, I want to try and do this because you and I need it, and anybody that might be listening at any point will also probably need it after this too. And I've got an answer here, and I told it to you at the beginning. So if you want me to go first, so you could think about it for a minute, let me know. But how can we find any kind of a way to salvage any sort of positivity with this Sabres season this year?
You go first, yeah.
Yeah. I think for me,
Jake's got to dig real deep.
And mine is even far-fetched, dude. But I think the best way that you can find success the remainder of this season is you go to bed every night saying a prayer that Josh Norris shows you a little something these last 20 or whatever games that we have. I think you hope that Josh Norris shows you something. I think you watch Tage already scored tonight. I think you hope to continue to see, Tage. Like I'd like to see Tage get to 40 goals this year. I think that's another, thing you could take some positivity from. But for me, truly the big one is let's see a little something from Josh Norris this season, these last handful of games. A positive to go into the offseason on. Right?
Yeah. That's I agree with that. That's good.
And Jake, I should say this too. If you simply don't have anything, that's incredibly fair. This is a bleak team we're talking about.
It is a bleak team. I'm so hesitant. Like anything that pops into my mind just feels like so much of the last 14 years where they absolutely suck for so much of the season, and then boy, this Sabres team got really hot in March and April.
I know.
And it means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. Teams are coming in. They're either also not in the playoffs, so then it's just a nothing game, or they're in the playoffs solidly and they're playing down to Buffalo. Meanwhile, Buffalo has absolutely nothing to play for, really. If Jack Quinn really goes on a tear for the next month, is that going to inspire me that he's going to be able to do that in the fall? Frankly, no. I guess for me, the where I would say I would find inspiration and hope for next year, get through the rest of the season as painlessly as possible. Keeps whatever goodwill you can with as many of the players that you want to keep as you can, and just hold on tight and bear down for the offseason and hope that your Thompsons, Tucks, Dahlin's, Powers, and them don't say, I've had enough. Get me out of here. That dude, if Dahlin asks for a trade, where does that leave this team?
I mean, if Dahlin leaves this team, it leaves them as the worst team in the NHL by a margin that is so unbelievably significant. I can't even put it into words.
I bold and not so unbaseless prediction. I think San Jose makes the playoffs before this Buffalo team. On that note, Tom, get us out of here.
Thank you all from the bottom of our hearts for spending some time with us. Please give us a like and a follow on Instagram, X, TikTok, and our YouTube channel at Let's Go Buff Pod. These are my pals, Jake and Nigel. My name is Tom, and you're listening to the Let's Go Buffalo podcast. We're sending you love wherever you are. Go Bills, go Sabres, let's go Buffalo.